I'm proud to be joined by Senators Durbin, Murray, and Stabenow, stalwarts of our leadership team. Now, the Senate's having a very, very productive work period. This week, we are on track to pass something many believed was impossible a few weeks ago, a meaningful, strong, bipartisan gun safety bill. A little over a month ago, our nation witnessed two of the most traumatic mass shootings seen in years, a racially motivated attack by a bigot in Buffalo and the worst school shooting in years in Uvalde. America was just so shaken by this. I still just think of the picture of that little boy with his trophy, and all those of us who have had 9-year-olds or 10-year-olds or 11-year-olds coming home with their trophy and see that picture and knowing he's gone and what his parents go through. It's just overwhelming. Well, after these shootings, the Senate had a choice. We could succumb to gridlock and hold a vote on a bill with many things we'd want but that had no hope of getting passed, or we could try to find a bipartisan path forward, as difficult as it seemed to get anything done. Democrats and a good number of Republicans said we had to try. It was the right decision. Immediately after Uvalde, Senator Murphy and I conferred, and he's, of course, been our leader on gun safety after his experience living so close to Sandy Hook. And we decided, he asked me to give the negotiators time and space to do their work. We decided it would be the right thing to do. And we thought there was a decent chance we actually might succeed this time. I agreed with Senator Murphy because I knew that even if there was a chance to get something positive and tangible done on gun safety, it was worth the effort. So I told Senators Murphy and Cornyn that I'd give them the space they needed. Over the past 4 weeks, Senators Murphy and Sinema, Cornyn and Tillis, and so many others, including my colleagues here, each of whom played a role in this legislation, we all worked together to get something meaningful done. The bipartisan bill is real progress, and most important of all, beyond all the political considerations, it's going to save lives. One of the things I'm proudest of, I wrote the Brady Law 30 years ago, and there are tens of thousands of people on the streets today who are alive who wouldn't have been. And now, for the first time in 30 years, we're making similar progress, and there are going to be lots of people whose lives are saved by this legislation. Just last night, we began the process to quickly pass gun safety legislation after 64 senators voted to getting on the bill. The Senate's now on the brink of passing the first significant gun safety bill in decades. It's my intention to make sure this Senate bill passes before the end of the week. The American people have waited long enough. I want to thank my colleagues, Democrat and Republican, for working together to reach this point. I want to particularly thank Senators Murphy and Sinema and all of my Democratic colleagues who were part of the bipartisan group. When the bipartisan gun safety bill passes, along with the PACT Act, it will cap off a very productive work period here in the Senate. Senator Durbin.
The issue of gun violence is front and center in the city of Chicago, but not Chicago alone. We have a terrible death rate from guns, but there are other cities with even worse rates and states near us. It's no consolation to know that we're all in this together and fighting it together unless we can offer some hope. My people in Illinois and friends came to me and said, "You're supposed to be a hotshot legislator. Why don't you do something?" And of course, after Uvalde and after Buffalo, New York, and Tulsa, Oklahoma, it all came to a head. And finally, we were being pushed to the point where we absolutely had to do something. This legislation is very good in so many different aspects, but I want to address two that really make a difference in my mind. The first is on the issue of straw purchasing. Now, that may not sound like much to many people, but it means a lot to some, and I'm one of them. This is a measure supported by Senators Leahy, Collins, and myself. And the idea is to stop those who have a clean criminal record from buying guns for the sole purpose of giving them to convicted felons to commit another crime. We know this issue personally in the city of Chicago last year because in August we lost a wonderful 29-year-old Chicago policewoman named Ella French. A straw purchase gun was aimed at her head and killed her in her squad car, and then maimed her partner who was with her at the time, who lost his sight in one eye. It was a straw purchase gun. The man who fired it never could have legally purchased it, but he found somebody who would buy it for him. This bill finally starts to close that loophole by saying we're taking that seriously. It's no longer a bookkeeping offense, a misdemeanor. It's a serious offense. It'll be treated as a gun crime and a violent crime. That is a step forward. But the one area that I want to close with means so much in so many different levels. We know that half of the gun deaths in America are by suicide. We know that there are mass shooters who do these terrible things in classrooms and theaters and all across the United States. And we also know that the gun violence that goes on day in, day out in the big cities is different than that. The deaths are the same, the injuries are the same, but the causes are different. The most important part of this bill, as far as I'm concerned, and I want to thank Senator Stabenow and Senator Murray for this, is the language in there that talks about counseling and mental health and sitting down with young people and others who need a helping hand. That is going to prevent suicides. It's going to give people some new hope in life, along with the red flag laws that may save lives. But when it comes to children, the gangbangers on the streets of the city of Chicago, 90% of them have gone through a traumatic experience in their lives unimaginable to the rest of us. They need a helping hand. To ignore them is just to turn them free into the ganglands that dominate so many neighborhoods and more death. This bill starts putting money in schools and mental health counseling. That is part of the equation. It's guns, but it's also mental health. It's the same thing. It's the same issue when it comes to ending gun violence. So the money that's available in these schools are going to counsel kids away from the worst instincts which they've developed in their traumatic lives. That is a step forward, and I'm proud to be supporting it.
Senator Murray.
Well, I recently met with students and parents and educators back home in Seattle to talk about gun violence, and parents who worry, what if it's my kid's school next at the bus stop, and kids who are familiar with school shooter drills at recess and lunch, and teachers who wanted so badly for us here in Congress to know that they wear a lanyard around their neck, not a holster on their hip. Every community wants an end to gun violence. That is so clear. Now, of course, this bill doesn't do everything we need, not by a mile. We all understand this is a compromise. But make no mistake, the extreme option, the most unacceptable option, is for us to do nothing. Is for us to bury 19 kids and 2 teachers and go right back to business as usual. That's why doing something matters. Thanks to Senator Murphy's leadership, Congress is doing something. We are going to pass several really meaningful steps that help address gun violence and will save lives. This will be the most comprehensive gun safety legislation we have passed in decades, and we're going to pass it this week. Helping states implement the red flag laws, strengthening background checks on buyers under the age of 21, finally closing the boyfriend loophole to keep guns out of the hands of domestic abusers. That is progress, and that matters. And importantly, we will invest in mental health to address the mental health crisis our country is facing and make sure people that everywhere, including survivors of gun violence, can get the care they need. These are good mental health investments that will help people, and I hope to build on them in the bipartisan mental health package that Senator Burr and I are negotiating right now. But the gun violence crisis is a gun problem, not a mental health problem, or a school problem for that matter, especially when mass shootings happen in so many other places, in stores and concerts and houses of worship, even in health centers. This is a gun problem, plain and simple, and the answer is not to arm teachers or put guns in the classroom. That's why I'm so glad we could secure a prohibition on using federal education dollars to purchase guns or to train educators in their use. It's just common sense. Now this week, we are going to take our first meaningful steps we've ever taken on gun violence in decades, and that's good. But we are going to keep pushing for the kind of common sense gun safety reforms we know that the American people support. But we're not going to stay stuck on square one any longer. We're not going to keep just spinning our wheels. We are not going to keep families waiting for Congress to do something. This week we are going to do something. We're going to pass legislation that will help save lives. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Murray. Senator Stabenow.
Well, thank you, Senator Schumer, and obviously I join my colleagues in being very grateful and excited about what we're going to be able to get done, both in terms of saving lives because of gun safety and also because of what we can do going forward in transforming community mental health services and funding it as health care and working with our schools and law enforcement and others. I want to take a moment, though, just to step back, because we come before you every week when we're in session and talk about what we're getting done. And the truth is, day after day, on issue after issue, Democrats are tackling the concerns that affect people's daily lives, their safety, their health, their quality of life, over and over again. We are laser focused on that. Americans have been telling us time and again what's important to them. We hear them. And the most important thing is that we are delivering over and over again. Americans want to feel safe, sending their kids to school, getting groceries at the neighborhood store, or worshiping together. And that's what we're talking about doing now, taking this step, very, very important steps forward on safety. Americans want quality mental health and addiction treatment services in their community for themselves and their families. And that's what we are moving forward doing. People want to do right by our veterans who've been affected by toxic burn pits while serving overseas. We have done that as well. Americans want qualified judges who will serve the American people, not the whims of the Federalist Society. And we are doing that as well every day. And Americans want to make sure our children aren't going hungry while they're in school or after school or during the summer. And we are going to move forward on that as well. We're getting results on issue after issue that's important to Americans because it's also important to us. In the last 18 months, we've focused on saving lives, rebuilding America, bringing jobs home, and creating more opportunities for every American to work hard and be successful. Every day, you can count on us to keep putting people first. Every day. Not big corporations, not dark money special interests, the American people. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Stabenow. Yes.
I wanted to ask you about the gas tax holiday that President Biden's going to ask Congress for. Do you support that, or what do you think Congress should do to curb
Okay.
inflation?
Well, first, Senate Democrats tried to pass it recently, and it was blocked by Republicans. I believe the most important thing we can do to lower gas prices is crack down on big oils and manipulation of the oil markets. The cost of getting the oil out of the ground has not increased, but the price of oil has dramatically increased, and the oil companies, and there are four major ones, we don't have much competition, are manipulating the market. Now, we have legislation to do that, and we're going to focus on that issue. There is no reason during this time of crisis that the oil companies should take such advantage. Yes?
To put a finer point on it, do you anticipate putting a gas tax holiday bill on the floor of the Senate?
Well, we tried, and the Republicans blocked it. Yes?
I know you want to get USICA, China Competes, done before the August recess.
Yes.
What else is on the schedule for the July work period, and might there be a vote on a budget reconciliation package?
Okay, let me answer. First, one of the things we care a lot about is the price cap on insulin and changing the market around so that the fundamental costs of insulin don't go up. Today, Senators Shaheen and Collins introduced bipartisan legislation to do that, and I'd like to move that to the floor very soon. So many people are suffering because they have to make a choice of buying food or paying the rent or insulin. And this particularly affects poorer people who don't get good treatment, who don't, if they have diabetes, they may get no treatment at all. In terms of reconciliation, I met with Senator Manchin again this morning. That's out. We're continuing to have very good and productive discussions, but there are still some issues that have to be resolved. Yes. Yes, go ahead, Manoj.
In light of the concerns over judicial security, your comments from a couple of years ago on the steps of the Supreme Court have gotten some renewed attention. Do you regret saying that they were paid the price?
Let me say this. First of all, I'm against violence in any way. I'm for peaceful protest, but I'm against violence. Number two, we in the Senate passed legislation very quickly to deal with the Supreme Court, and I'm very glad the perpetrator was caught. Yes. No, I think this is a major step forward. As I mentioned earlier today, look, we could have put a bill on the floor that had everything we wanted. It would have been blocked. People are tired of that. I was out on the streets of New York this weekend. Everyone said, look, even if you can't get everything we all want, let's get something done. And the fact that this legislation will save lives, the fact that this legislation does a lot of good things that haven't been done before, is what carried the day, and I think that's why you saw a unanimous vote on the part of the Democrats. Yes.
You said it should pass by the end of the week. Right? You said it should pass by the end of the week. Is that Friday or Saturday?
The sooner the better. You'll wait and see. Last question.
What are your plans for the Dettelbach nomination?
Yes, we intend to move the Dettelbach nomination as soon as we get back in July. We have the votes for it. He's a good person. We'll get him on there. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.